They gave a broke rancher an old bull to humiliate him. Not just any bull, one so bruised and beaten it was practically a joke. But the moment that gate opened, something no one expected happened. The way he moved, what he tried, and what followed would rattle the circuit and leave the arena holding its breath. Welcome to West Side Tales, where true stories get darker, deeper, and more unbelievable the longer you watch. If you love hearing our stories, hit like and subscribe to us, and get ready because this one begins where the dust never settles. Tom McCall, known as Dusty back in the day, wasn't the kind of man people noticed anymore. Not in Amarillo, not at the feed store, not even at his own ranch. Not since the fall. Once, his name meant something. He had been a local legend in the bull riding world. Fast hands, nerves of steel, the kind of man who could stay on a twisting 2,000-pound beast long enough to break records and bones alike. But a decade ago, in Reno, he flew 23 feet into the dirt and didn't get back up. The doctors said he was lucky. Dusty didn't agree. At 43, he lived on the edge of a failing property. The barn sagged. The herd had thinned. The well had gone dry 2 summers in a row. He still rode sometimes, balancing on hay bales, or bouncing on a worn tractor seat he had rigged up to remember the feel of the ride. But it was only habit, not hope. He had one thing left to lose, and that was his daughter. Jessie was 17, sharp-eyed, tougher than she looked, and too smart to buy into rodeo dreams. She worked 2 jobs, cleaning rooms at a roadside motel and bussing tables at Buckaroo's. She never said it, but Dusty could tell she was tired. Tired of holding up what he had dropped. Still, she made him coffee every night. Burnt, black, just how he liked it. One evening she sat beside him on the porch and said, "You gotta sell the land, Daddy. Ain't nothing left here but memory." Dusty didn't answer, because memory was all he had. The next day a truck rolled in, clean and shining, red paint glinting like a warning. Out stepped Wyatt Sloan, tall, polished, a former rider who had traded in his grit for PR deals. Behind him came Tex Boone, lean and twitchy, wearing the kind of smile that didn't trust itself. They didn't knock, just leaned on the gate like they were waiting to see if a dog would bark. "McCall," Wyatt said, "heard your heart up." Dusty stood in the dirt, arms crossed. "What of it?" Tex spat in the dust. "We got a little offer. Something fun. Redemption arc. You ride for us. 1 bull. 1 night. You stay on 8 seconds, we pay off your loan. Fail and, well, you make good content." Dusty stared at him. "What's the catch?" Wyatt grinned. "You'll be riding old straight shot." Dusty blinked. "That bull's still breathing." "Barely. That's the point. He's slow, scarred, and half-blind. It's a joke, man. But the crowd'll love it. A broken legend on a broken bull. We'll stream it, maybe even cut a trailer." Dusty's chest went tight. He remembered Shot. The bull had thrown him once, broke 2 ribs, nearly broke more. This wasn't a chance. It was bait. But then he looked at the porch. Jessie stood there, arms folded, watching. Her face didn't say much, but her eyes did. "This is stupid. But I believe you could do it." That look stuck to him harder than any insult. "I'll ride," Dusty said. "Where and when?" Wyatt lit up. "Friday. Midnight rodeo. 3 days." After they left, Dusty stood in the barn and stared at the old saddle. Dust clung to the leather. The horn was crusted with age. He pulled it down and felt the weight settle across his arms like old shame. Jessie stepped in behind him. "You really gonna do it?" "I think I have to. They want to make you a joke." "I know. Then why say yes?" Dusty looked her in the eye. "Because it's not about them." That night he called Ramon Reyes, an old coach from another life. "You're out of your mind," Ramon said. "That bull doesn't spin," he snaps. "You'll get folded in half." "I'm not trying to win," Dusty replied. "Just trying to finish." Ramon didn't argue. "I'll be there by morning." For the next 2 days they trained like the past was chasing them. Dusty ran, stretched, held balance drills until his knees screamed. Ramon drilled his timing, his center of gravity, the small shoulder movements that would mean the difference between lasting and flying. Jessie helped tie rope, reset timers, dumped water over his head when he lost focus. They watched clips of Shot in his prime. The bull always went left, dipped low, then spun high. But in the last few rides, he had started favoring his right. It was a tell. A clue. If Dusty could last 6 seconds, the bull began to lose power. That was the window. By the end of day 2, Dusty's hands were bleeding and his knee throbbed like fire. But he didn't stop. On the porch, Jesse handed him a beer and sat beside him. "You sure this ain't gonna kill you?" "If it does," he said, "at least it won't be boredom." They watched the sky together, stars inching along like cattle. When Friday night came, the arena behind Buckaroos filled with cars and people and cameras. Teens in baseball caps, old cowboys, couples with plastic cups of beer. Phones were already rolling. Dusty stood behind the chute. Shot stood in the pen. The bull looked older now, his fur patchy, one eye fogged. But he still moved with that slow menace. Dusty climbed the gate, tied his glove, adjusted his rope. Jessie stood by the fence. Her hands were clenched. Dusty looked at her once. Then he looked up at the sky. 8 seconds, he said under his breath. He swung a leg over the bull. The gate hadn't opened yet. The ride hadn't started. But in every way that mattered, Dusty McCall was already riding. Dusty gripped the rope tighter than he ever had before, his hand locking around the coarse leather like it was the only thing keeping him alive. The noise of the crowd faded to nothing. The lights overhead disappeared into blur, and the world shrank until it was just him and the slow, coiled shift of straight shot underneath him. The bull moved like a creature waking from a long, bitter sleep, muscles bunching, breath rattling from deep inside his chest. Then the gate flung open and the world exploded. Shot burst out with a force that didn't belong in a creature his age, twisting left, hooves slamming the ground, back legs launching Dusty up, then trying to rip him off on the way down. Dusty's body screamed in response, knee howling in pain, ribs tightening. Shot dipped low, Dusty followed, nearly too late. The bull jerked again, harder, spinning to the right this time, something no one expected, not even Ramon. Dusty lost his stirrup, fought to keep his center, clenched with everything he had. For seconds, his glove slipped. He readjusted midair, teeth clenched, sweat pouring into his eyes. 6 seconds. His shoulder burned. The roar of the crowd began to filter back in, distant and distorted, as if underwater. Then Shot rose again for one final kick, and Dusty felt the rope sliding. He was going to fly. 7 seconds. He gritted his teeth, tucked forward, tightened his legs, and by the time the buzzer screamed at 8, he was already falling, hitting the dirt hard on his side, breath gone. For a second, he didn't move. Then Jesse's voice cut through it all, sharp and close and scared. "You did it, Daddy." Her face came into view, pale with shock, but her smile tried to break through. Dusty coughed, nodded, and let her help him to his knees. Around them, the arena was going wild. Phones were raised, people shouting, a storm of disbelief and excitement tearing through the crowd. Ramon reached for him near the gate, gripping his arm with pride and something that felt like awe. Wyatt and Tex stood back from the rail, not speaking, their faces stiff and unreadable. Dusty didn't wave, didn't smile. He walked out slow, each step a victory, his legs shaking with pain and adrenaline. Back at the fence, Jessie threw her arms around him. Her breath was uneven. "You scared the hell out of me." "I scared myself worse," he whispered. They drove home without saying much. The windows were open. The night air poured in. When they got home, she helped him to the porch, her shoulder steady under his. "You're gonna be hurting bad tomorrow." "Maybe," he said, "but I'll still be standing." By morning, the internet was already on fire. The clip had been uploaded within minutes, 18 seconds that captured every twist and drop and gasp. The title was short and loud. "Rodeo Ghost Comes Back from the Dead." Views ticked up by the thousands. Messages poured in. News stations called. A local anchor left 3 voicemails. Dusty ignored them all. He wasn't doing this for fame. But not everyone thought the same. Wyatt showed up that afternoon, this time with Tex and a new trailer. They didn't speak at first. They just opened the trailer and let the next challenge breathe out steam. Rowdy, a younger bull, taller, heavier, angrier. Rowdy was straight-shot son, and the only thing he had inherited from his father was fury. "You rode the old man," Wyatt said. "Now ride the son. Double or nothing. If you beat him, you don't just get your debt forgiven. You get your name back." Dusty squinted. "And if I don't?" "We take the ranch," Wyatt said. Simple as that. Jesse stepped in before Dusty could reply. "This is a setup. You're pushing him to get hurt." "It's rodeo," Tex said. "It's always about pushing." Dusty looked at Rowdy. The bull shifted in the shadows, muscle flexing beneath a coat of fresh scars and twitching nerves. He wasn't like shot. He wasn't tired or beat down. He was pure storm. Dusty took a breath. "Fine. One more ride. But no cameras this time. You want this? We do it quiet. No social. Just the dirt and the crowd." Wyatt raised an eyebrow. "Deal. Tomorrow night. Same arena." When they drove off, Jesse turned to him. "What are you doing? Losing your mind?" "Maybe," Dusty said. "But there's something I gotta prove. Not to them. To myself." That night he couldn't sleep. The pain was loud in every joint, but louder still was the fire catching in his chest. Something old was alive again. Not pride. Not ego. Something deeper. The need to stand up when everyone expects you to stay down. The need to show your daughter you still can. The next morning the sun rose too early and too bright, and Dusty felt like he had been hit by a truck. His ribs stiff, his knees swollen, his palms raw and pink from torn skin. Still, he moved slow but steady, feeding the last of the hay to the horses and checking the fence lines while Jesse trailed behind him holding a bag of ice wrapped in an old dish towel. "You could still back out," she said, her voice tight. "No one would blame you." "I would," he answered. She didn't argue again. By mid-afternoon, Ramon showed up without calling, stepping out of his truck with a cooler in one hand and tape in the other. He took one look at Dusty and said, "You're gonna need painkillers, better boots, and a miracle." Dusty gave a tired smile. "Just the boots and miracle then." They spent the rest of the day reviewing old footage of Rowdy, what little there was. Rowdy wasn't just mean, he was smart. He faked his first move in almost every ride, dropping low then suddenly twisting the opposite direction. Riders leaned wrong every time, and the moment they did, he used that split-second hesitation to throw them like rag dolls. Most lasted 3 or 4 seconds. A few made it to 6. No one hit 8. Ramon didn't say much while they watched. Just rewound the same clip over and over and said, "You see that tail flick? Right there. That's his tell. If you miss it, you're done." Dusty nodded, committed it to memory. Jessie didn't say a word during all of this. She watched from the porch, arms crossed, eyes following every move. When the sun dropped low behind the barn, they loaded up the truck. No lights, no press, no cameras. Just 3 people, 1 bull, and 1,000 eyes in the dark waiting for blood. The same arena behind Buckaroo's barbecue was smaller this time, quieter. But the tension had doubled. Word had spread. People came anyway. Not influencers or bloggers. Real ones. Old cowhands, wranglers, men with their hats pulled low and their boots dusty. They leaned against the rails and watched without speaking. Jesse helped Dusty wrap his wrists, tied the rope around his glove, the way Ramon had taught her. "You sure about this?" she whispered. "Never less sure," he replied. "But I'm still doing it." The chute creaked when they brought Rowdy in. The bull snarled, not growled. A kind of sound that didn't belong in a barn. More like a warning from something ancient. Dusty stepped forward, slower this time. Not out of fear, but because everything inside him knew this was different. This wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving he still had something right left in him. He mounted without ceremony, lowered his head, counted backward from 10. Rowdy shifted under him, all twitching muscle and rage. Ramon gave the nod. The gate opened. Rowdy did exactly what they had seen. Dropped hard to the left, kicked up dirt, made Dusty flinch right, then whipped in the opposite direction like a snapping wire. Dusty lost his balance in the first second. By the second, he was 1 inch from being thrown. But he held. He forced his shoulder down, corrected, remembered the tail flick, waited for it. There. 3rd second. Rowdy spun again. This time Dusty leaned into the chaos, not away from it. His knee felt like it was being torn open. 4th second. Rowdy bucked forward, legs stiff. Dusty rose an inch, dropped back hard. 5th second. Rowdy spun left, hard, almost too hard. Dusty's hand slipped. His eyes closed for a half second. When they opened again, Jessie's face flashed in his memory. Her younger, from years ago, when she used to sit on the fence and cheer for him at the county fair. That face kept him on the bull. 6th second. Rowdy twisted again. Dusty adjusted. Everything hurt. His lungs were fire. His heart a drum that didn't know how to slow down. 7th second. The crowd stopped breathing. Ramon stepped toward the rail. Jessie gripped the fence so hard her knuckles turned white. Rowdy spun one last time, and Dusty stayed on. The 8th second came like a whisper. There was no buzzer, just silence. Then Dusty let go. He hit the dirt chest first and didn't move for a beat. Then another. Then he rolled to his back, coughing, breathing, alive. The crowd didn't cheer, not right away. They didn't know what to say. He had done something no one thought possible. Twice. Jessie ran to him, dropped to her knees beside him, her hands on his chest. "Daddy, Daddy, are you okay?" He nodded, eyes glassy, throat too dry to speak. Ramon leaned over the rail, smile wide. "That's the stupidest, bravest thing I ever seen." Wyatt and Tex were nowhere to be found. Gone before the ride even ended. Dusty sat up slow, looked around at the ring, the dust, the people. There were no cameras this time, no footage, no proof, just the story, and everyone there would carry it with them. That night, as they drove back to the ranch, Jessie didn't say much. She just held his hand and didn't let go. The morning after the second ride broke slower than usual, with a strange quiet across the ranch, like the ground itself was holding its breath. Dusty woke in his chair on the porch, blanket over his legs. Jessie curled up asleep beside him, her head resting against his arm. The sun rose gentle and gold, and for a brief moment, he let himself believe that maybe it was over, maybe the storms had passed. But peace was always short-lived in a place like this. By noon people had begun showing up, not media types but ranchers, old riders, fathers with their sons. They had heard, not from any post or video but from the ones who were there, who passed the story from mouth to mouth like a secret too good to keep. They came to shake his hand, to see the arena where it happened, to ask if it was true. Dusty didn't say much, just nodded and let them look. Some asked for advice. A few asked for lessons. One boy, maybe 14, looked him straight in the eye and said, "I want to ride like you." Dusty knelt down slow, aching from hip to toe, and said, "Then you ride for the right reasons. You ride for something that matters." Jessie watched all this from the barn doorway, her arms crossed but her face softer than it had been in weeks. That evening she brought out the papers he had ignored for months. The ranch deed, the bank notices, the overdue fines. "We don't owe them anymore," she said. "I talked to the lawyer. They dropped the claim." Dusty nodded. He didn't ask how. He didn't care. He just took her hand and held it in silence. The next day more riders came. By the end of the week there were almost 30. Not all wanted to ride bulls. Some just wanted to learn balance. Some wanted to learn courage. Some had lost fathers and thought maybe this was a place to find something again. Ramon stayed longer than he meant to, helping run drills, showing kids how to fall right, how to roll out of a spin without breaking their necks. He didn't charge. Neither did Dusty. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about giving something back that the world had almost taken. One afternoon a man in a suit showed up in a car too clean for the dirt road. He introduced himself as a regional manager for a Western brand, some boot company looking to sign deals. He offered Dusty a check. Big numbers. A series. A sponsorship. Dusty looked at the paper, then handed it back. "I'm not for sale. Not now. Not ever again." The man didn't argue, just left his card in case. That night Jessie found Dusty in the barn, staring at an empty pen. "Something wrong?" she asked. Dusty shook his head. "Not wrong. Just different." The pen had held shot once, then Rowdy. Now it was quiet. Jessie leaned on the rail beside him. "You think you'll ever ride again?" He shrugged. Not bulls like them. Maybe something smaller. Maybe something slower. But if I do, it'll be for me. Not for a crowd. She smiled. For a second, they just stood there, breathing in the warm scent of hay and dust and memory. Then from outside came a low sound. A snort. Not loud but sharp. They stepped out and saw a trailer pulling in. Not Wyatt. Not Texas. A different rig. The driver stepped out. Older man. Calm face. Said he was here to drop off a favor. Friend of Ramon's. Said this calf needed a new home. Dusty raised an eyebrow. What kind of calf? The man opened the gate. Out stepped a young bull. Red hide. Narrow eyes. Legs still growing but thick with promise. Wild but not angry. Not yet. He looked around, pawed at the ground once, then stood still. Dusty stared at him. The bull stared back. Jesse whispered, "He's just a baby." Dusty nodded. "But he's watching like he already knows something." The man handed Dusty a folder. Lineage papers. Bloodlines. History. Dusty flipped through it slowly. His heart caught. The bull's grandsire was shot. The sire was rowdy. This calf wasn't just the next chapter. He was the legacy. They named him Ember. That night Dusty sat on the porch. The stars scattered and close. The wind soft through the trees. Jessie sat beside him, her head on his shoulder. She asked, "What now?" He answered, "We train him right. No anger. No cruelty. Just fire where it belongs. Not in the crowd. Not in the money. In the spirit. That's what matters." The next morning the ranch wasn't quiet anymore. It was alive. Weeks passed and the story of Dusty McCall spread farther than anyone expected. Not because it was filmed or advertised, but because it was carried in the mouths of those who had seen something real, something they couldn't forget. Riders started calling from other states asking if they could come down and train, not just to learn how to ride but to remember why they wanted to in the first place. Dusty never said no. The ranch that had once been a dying patch of land now rang with the sounds of boots and dirt, ropes swinging, and young voices asking questions that mattered. Jesse handled the schedules, the gear orders, even started a small website for the camp, though Dusty didn't much understand how it worked. What he did understand was how to teach, and he did, not by talking much but by showing how to fall and get back up, how to read a bull's weight shift by the tilt of a head, how to sit in a saddle like you meant it. Ember grew fast. Strong legs, broader shoulders, eyes that stayed on you even after you looked away. Dusty spent every morning with him, walking the perimeter, brushing his coat, learning his pace. He wasn't sure what the future held for the bull or for himself. Maybe Ember would ride one day. Maybe he'd become a champion. Or maybe he'd just be the bridge between two broken legends and something that healed. Either way, Dusty was there for it. Ramon left the ranch a few weeks later, heading home to New Mexico but promising to be back come fall. Before he drove off, he clapped Dusty on the back and said, "You did more than ride, old friend. You rewrote the whole damn playbook." Dusty didn't argue. He just nodded and watched his old coach disappear down the road. That night, as the sun dropped low, Dusty and Jesse stood at the top of the pasture, looking down at the barn and the students and the slow curve of the land that used to feel like a cage and now felt like purpose. Jesse asked him if he'd ever imagined it ending like this. Dusty shook his head. "I never imagined it ending at all." They stood there a long time, quiet, until Ember snorted behind them, nudging Dusty's back with a curious nudge. Jesse laughed. "He likes you. Maybe too much," Dusty said. "You think he's ready?" "Not yet. But someday. Someday someone's gonna ride him, and when they do it won't be to prove anything. It'll be because they're ready. And if I'm still standing, I'll be there to see it." Jesse reached out, took his hand, and together they walked back down the hill, past the barn, through the dust that no longer carried failure but something else. Something solid. Something earned. Because in the end, it wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about remembering what it means to keep showing up, no matter how hard the ground feels when you hit it. And long after the world had moved on, after the videos stopped playing and the names faded from the mouths of strangers, the land still held the truth. A broke rancher rode an old bull. Then he rode again. And what he did changed everything. If you want to watch more stories about quiet strength, impossible odds, and people who never stopped fighting, You can do that right here. Just click the next story.